Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for now week 11 of the 2025 fantasy football season. I hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Tuesday as we're talking all things fantasy football for the next hour plus. Of course, many of us are dealing with many of injuries, potentially two teams on bye with the Indianapolis Colts and New Orleans Saints. And of course, potentially some of us are preparing for future weeks ahead, as there are far more bye weeks in the upcoming future of week 12 and 14. And of course, the fantasy playoffs just a couple weeks away. So for those of you who are trying to steady up your rosters for that moment, or of course trying to win now in order to make the final dance of weeks 15 through 17, I'm here to help you with that exactly. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, earlier today, I did post my top 36 running back rankings for week 11 in regards to the running back position in a half PPR. Of course, like I've mentioned before, rankings are subject to change. Whether or not ranking ends up sitting as, where it does right now, doesn't mean that it's not going to change by the time we get to Sunday morning. There's a lot of information the next 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, in terms of practice designations in regards to injuries that is certainly going to kind of clear up the overall situation as we approach this upcoming week. Isaiah Pacheco, is he healthy? What is Ramondre Stevenson's status for this upcoming Thursday? What is J.K. Dobbins' status? Again, there are many of players that still at the running back position are very much so unknown, but we'll keep that monitored over the course of this entire week and potentially prepare in order to kind of pick up players just in case via the waiver tonight. Again, for those of you guys who have any questions, whether it is a waiver wire trade question, starter sit question, probably a little bit early for a starter sit, but maybe on a Thursday question, I'd be more than happy to answer that. Make sure you include your scoring format, whether you do type in the question in the live chat and or potentially via super chat in order to claim priority. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be to answer your guys' questions. How many teams are in your league? What's your win-loss record? And, what's your scoring format? That is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Again, earlier today, besides, of course, this video, talked a lot about the potential of that game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals being a little bit of a shootout between those two running backs ranked in my top 12, Chase Brown and Jaylen Warren. Again, Joe Burrow, the thumbnail of today's live stream, isn't by accident. Again, for those of you who haven't heard, he has already been activated for the 21-day practice window. So the expectation is that he should be available potentially by week 13, if not week 14, which if you can get Joe Flacco for your fantasy playoff run, weeks 15 through 17, with the matchups that he has throughout those 3 weeks, it's as glorious as it possibly could potentially get in the case of a quarterback with that talent level, on top of the fact that his schedule throughout those 3 weeks are Baltimore, which is going to be a shootout, Miami, and then Arizona. I'm really excited about that potential. Therefore, I have him as today's thumbnail. So if in fact someone in your league already dropped him, you can maybe pick him up and put him on your IR slot for the future. Okay, with that all covered, hope you guys are doing well. Let's go ahead and let's begin to answer questions. I know there's not too many of you in here on this wonderful Tuesday. Again, the waiver wire this week's a little bit thin, so I understand that. So we'll go ahead and try to answer as many questions as I possibly can, but I want to begin by answering a couple questions via super chat. So let's go ahead and let's begin with that. I'll throw those on screen right now. Beginning with Football is Life. It says questions in the chat. Thanks, sir. I hope all is well. Thank you very much. It is. Appreciate it. It says in a half PPR, the players of any value I have is Caleb, Christian McCaffrey, Achane, Johnston, Marvin Harrison, Derrick Henry, Trey McBride, Darius Slayton. I got offered Waddle and Judkins for Achane. Do I accept? Look, here's the reality of the situation. Obviously, your wide receiver position is incredibly thin with Johnston, Marvin Harrison, and Darius Slayton. And I really don't love the upcoming schedule ahead for Marvin Harrison in the fantasy playoffs, weeks 15 through 17. So I think it just becomes a matter of are we preparing for the playoffs, or are we preparing for trying to, collect victories in the coming weeks ahead in order to make the playoffs? I think that's an incredibly vital position to kind of understand where we're at. If we're still in pursuit of playoff, potential, then we can, honestly, we could very easily make this trade either way. But for the fantasy playoffs, I would love to have another alternative option in comparison to Marvin Harrison at wide receiver. So the thing is, I don't want to move Achane, but if we're just purely in the pursuit of trying to improve our roster for the fantasy playoffs, I feel like moving Achane maybe is not the most ideal position to be in, considering they take on Pittsburgh and Cincinnati in the first 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs. That Cincinnati matchup, he's probably going for 30 plus points. So I'd imagine that he by himself is going to be just as valuable as like a Judkins Waddle in combination. But if you need more depth right now because of the wide receiver lacking that you currently have on roster and you're trying to push for the playoffs, I could understand making this trade, considering the upcoming schedule for Judkins is quite favorable as well, with weeks 12, 13, and 14, that final playoff push being against Las Vegas, San Francisco, and Tennessee, and being quite advantageous to say the very least. Thank you, football. Appreciate it. Let me know. Just go ahead and type in the live chat what your overall win-loss record is so that I kind of have an idea and what place you're in your league. Thanks. Luis, what's up? Says, I need a wide receiver in a flex and a half PPR scoring format. Marks, Diggs, or Juwan Jennings. I mean, look, I think they're all in their own right great plays. I think the potential which Woody Marks can present, assuming, again, whenever you're taking on the Tennessee Titans, we would like to assume that the opposing team is going to take a very big lead early. And once, in fact, they do, they could very easily just continue to run the ball in the second half and look in the direction of Woody Marks in doing so, considering last time out against Tennessee, he went for 25.9 fantasy points in a half PPR scoring format. So I'm going to lean in that direction. I prefer to have the running back that is getting the bulk majority of workload within this backfield, whether it's on the ground, through the air, pretty much kind of turning Nick Chubb into being an afterthought as of late. So yes, I'd be looking in the direction of Woody Marks as my start, as my flex, and then at wide receiver between Diggs and Juwan Jennings. I think there's still a lot unknown about the overall situation in San Francisco going into this week. I don't know if Purdy's playing. I don't know if Pearsall plays. So because of that, and because we still haven't gotten to Thursday's game yet, under the assumption that Kayshon Bouttie's inactive, I would probably just play Diggs on Thursday and just roll that direction, and then kind of look towards Juwan Jennings in a future week, because the alternative options you have in comparison to him, in my opinion, are just solidified enough to where I'm very comfortable going in those directions. Thank you. Akshay, what's up, my man? Akshay says the following, says, did I mess up? Lost a bet, so had to do it. Wait, what happened? I'm so sorry. What happened is, did I mess up, man? Lost a bet, so I had to do it. SMH, currently 7-3. What are we talking about, brother? What better be talking about? Let me know. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We buy home sends it a question. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, it says, I have Daniel Dimes on a bye week. Who would you stream off of the waivers? Purdy, Penix, Darnold, McCarthy, Brissett, Tua, Mariota, or Stroud? Well, I think the correct play in this circumstance in a 6-point per passing touchdown league would revolve anywhere around like Purdy, Darnold, or Brissett. I think those are the three best options for you this week in my mind. Now, Stroud, again, I'm still 100%, not 100% like in on the idea of going in his direction, even though he did have a great game last time out against the Tennessee Titans, and I would assume he could probably put together another good one here. But in comparison to him, I really do like the alternative options. Jacoby Brissett in a 6-point per passing touchdown league as of late has just been unstoppable with 23 plus fantasy points in each of the last 3 games. Sam Darnold in that same kind of vein. I understand that he has a far more difficult matchup having to take on the Rams, who last season gave him trouble twice and really did apply the pressure. And because of that pressure, of course, Darnold folded underneath it. In the 2 games in which Minnesota took on the Rams last season, in which the Rams won both those games. So as of right now, I could justify going either of the 2 directions. Obviously, Sam Darnold's had a couple games here as of late in which he hasn't been the most successful for fantasy purposes, primarily because of the fact that they've had to just kind of, okay, you know what, we're up 30 points. Let's just go ahead and run out the clock. We're not really looking to score. While there's also been games in which he puts up 35 plus points in a 6-point per passing touchdown league. As of right now, out of the group, if you were to tell me that Purdy was healthy and playing this week, I would probably play him. But otherwise, outside of that, I'm probably going to go with Brissett this week. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Carter, what's up? Says, with Wilson out, as in Garrett Wilson, my wide receiver 2 is Franklin, Washington, and Tucker. For wide receiver 2, which one of these 3 am I feeling most comfortable with going into this week? Well, as of this moment, look, Denver taking on the Kansas City Chiefs isn't the most ideal matchup per se, even though there has been a lot of slot receiving options that have taken on Kansas City and found an abundance of success. So like I could potentially go in that direction, especially considering the healthy volume of target opportunity we've continued to see go in the direction of Troy Franklin. But I feel like in a negative script, Parker Washington is probably the go-to. Tucker, even against the Dallas Cowboys, I don't know if I can trust any singular wide receiver on the Raiders this week. I mean, Tyler Lockett had more utilization than Trey Tucker last week, and there's no Surtain out there for Denver anyway. Like, ultimately, when I look at the potential of these 3 options, I'd probably rank them Parker Washington 1, Troy Franklin 2, and, and Tucker 3. Thank you. Marvin Lewis, what's up? Says, standard, my wide receivers are London. Okay, what else do you have here? Let's go ahead and change that really quickly. Okay, I've got London, I've got Sutton, and Addison. Should I pick up Mike Evans, who someone dropped? I'm in third. Yeah, look, as of right now, Mike Evans is probably not expected to play until probably week 16. And considering you're in third place, there's a pretty high likelihood in which you can get to week 16. So as of right now, yes, I'd be very much so willing to make that move. But I will say, even if he was available in week 16, we don't know what is over. I mean, like, he's dealing with a broken collarbone. So as soon as he comes back and is available, I would assume he's going to be at a full capacity. It's not like he's, returning from a hamstring or an ankle injury, right? To where he may be limited in his utilization. I would assume they'd give him the full workload go. So by week 16, if you have the available IR spot to hold him until then, I think that's a great plan of action there, Marvin. Thank you. Let's hear. Boy Blue, what's up, my man? How's it going? Says, hey, Andrew, I'm 8-2 in a 12-man league. I have Dart, Daniel Jones, Burrow, Kyron, Judkins, Hampton, Etienne, Spears, and Corum. Jamar, McMillan, J-Mo, Tez, and Kittle and Pitts. Okay. What moves should I make? Do I need to trade for a wide receiver too? I mean, technically speaking, yes, but not really. Like, Jamar Chase is obviously going to be your wide receiver one rest of the season. I think Jameson Williams, specifically based on his contributions of late, should easily be your wide receiver too, especially in the direction in which this offense is trending in terms of rest of season strength of schedule. They technically have like a top 10 rest of season strength of schedule at wide receiver. I mean, against Philly, the New York Giants, the Green Bay Packers, Dallas Cowboys for the remainder of the fantasy football regular season is very, very, very strong. But when I look towards the NFL playoffs, we're talking about the LA Rams, which should be a shootout, then Pittsburgh, which is the number one wide receiver matchup. Then you have Minnesota again, in which, of course, most recently, J-Mo was able to find himself some success there against that defense. So ultimately, when I look at Jameson Williams, I think he services very well as your wide receiver too for rest of season purposes, considering the contributions of opportunity he's continued to get as of late. I mean, again, 3 of the last 4 games in which he has played, he has had 14 or more fantasy points and a half PPR, to which I'm very confident in his overall contributions for the team going forward. So yes, you could theoretically look to improve on wide receiver too. But ultimately, it's just a matter of like, how much of an upgrade are we going to be able to find, and what would we have to give away in order to accomplish that? Like, I have Kyron, Judkins, and Etienne as my RB1, 2, 3. Hampton, again, is still very much so in question as to whether he's going to come back in week 13. Maybe it takes until week 14. Maybe he's not startable until week 15, to which I don't want to ship away Kyron, Judkins, or Etienne in the meanwhile, because I don't feel comfortable starting 3 of these wide receivers weekly. And Pitts has been incredibly inconsistent, and Kittle will be fine. And, Dart and Daniel Jones are going to be fine, and so is Burrow. But in terms of this overall circumstance, I guess you could try to go after a team that is very much so in a bind, where maybe they are going to be more willing to trade away let's say, for example, bye-week player in the coming weeks here. Let's say, for example, someone wants to ship away Alec Pierce or Michael Pittman Jr. this week. Sure, we can go ahead and we can explore that potential, but I don't want to send away Etienne outright for one for Pittman, because what I would rather do is send away Etienne and maybe one of your wide receivers, let's say Tedder McMillan, for Pittman and an incredibly lesser running back, right? To where I'm getting a 2 for 2, so where I still have a little bit of RB depth left going forward. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Says, was maybe thinking about packaging Judkins and McMillan. I think that's a decent idea, but you'd have to get a running back in return, because I'd be afraid of, if Hampton doesn't return in due time, you would be left with Kyron and Etienne, regardless of matchup. And if an injury was to occur, Spears and Corum, I mean, I don't know if, I guess Corum, for the handcuff there, maybe the plan of action would then just be, instead of having Spears on roster, you just go pick up Bayshall Tootin. So if anything ever happens to ETN, then at that point you're secure, to where then you can justify moving Judkins and McMillan for one wide receiver. I think that is actually a solid plan of action. Thank you. All right, let me go ahead and scroll back up here. Actually, I had been talking about something really quickly. It says, I really traded away Parker Washington and Harvey today for Baker Mayfield in a 12-team PPR Start 7 league. My team is now Baker, Dart, Daniels, Charbonnet, Hall. Yeah, I mean, I don't love it ultimately. I mean, again, Harvey with the potential of Dobbins missing some time here, potentially even being an IR candidate. The fact that Parker Washington is going to continue to remain and sustain value, primarily because bet that I lost. Isn't it? Okay, yeah, got it. And the fact that Parker Washington has got himself a huge skyrocket boost of opportunity going forward with Travis Hunter's season-ending injury. Let's see here. What was your overall situation? Bet that I lost in Super Chat. I don't even, brother, your super chat's even gone right now, so I don't even let's see here. Okay, here it is. Here's your full messages. This bet I lost. Yeah, you see, there's just nothing attached to it, brother. That's the issue. That's what I'm having a problem with. Whatever you type in, there's some word probably in the section that just like auto bans your entire message. I don't know why, but it's just like that. But yeah, obviously, if you lost the bet, then there's nothing really in terms of because I just don't like the trade. So at the bottom line, that it does suck that you had to make a trade in which you had to give away that for Baker Mayfield. Thank you, Michael De La Torre. Thank you, man. Says in a 6-point per touchdown league, PPR, I'm currently 9-1 with Caleb Purdy, CMC Dowdle, Harvey, Hendo, Benson, Puka, JSN Rice, Tetaroa, Shakir, and Tyler Warren. Do I trade one of my running backs away from Josh Allen? Also trade Warren and an RB for McBride and Bucky. Yeah, listen, if you were in the position to where you could, you can afford to do it. I would be very much so happy moving like a Tyler Warren and a, let's say, for example, Dowdle in order to go and get McBride and Bucky. But I will say, with Bucky Irving still not returning, it begins to kind of like, I don't know. I'm getting a little afraid. I'm not saying like I'm in full panic mode, but I'm certainly a little bit hesitant. So maybe I don't send away Dowdle, but instead I send away like Benson. Or maybe, obviously that's probably going to be a lesser option that they're not as interested in. Maybe Henderson gets the job done in order to bring in a McBride and Bucky to where even if Bucky still misses more time and doesn't return until maybe week 14, I'm still okay because I have these supplement starters here going forward. But in terms of improving, I think this is a pretty big upgrade under the assumption that Bucky and McBride stay healthy for the remainder of the season in this circumstance. Thank you. But in regards to moving an RB for Josh Allen, I would say yes, absolutely. If you can do so, that's probably just as good of a potential trade, but it just depends on what you would have to send away. If you would have to send away Dowdle or Henderson in order to accomplish that, again, you have to do one of these two trades. I don't know if you can get away with doing both, even though actually maybe you can get away with doing both. At 9-1, if you can secure a first-round bye, and if you can lose out if you lose out the rest of the way, maybe you lose out your first-round bye. But under the assumption that you could still maintain a first-round bye, having McCaffrey and Bucky as my RB1 and 2, and having Josh Allen and McBride as my tight ends, along with JSN, Puka, and Rice, I feel like I win the chip at that point. So if we can explore that and we can accomplish that and still maintain a first-round bye, then yes, I'm willing to go for it, Michael. Thank you. All right, let's see here. After Michael's question, we had Manana, who says, traded Barkley and White for Achane. Is this a good deal? Well, look, here's the thing. Rashad White's overall value is fleeting, considering Bucky Irving is eventually going to return. And in regards to Barkley versus Achane, I talked about it yesterday. I'm more than happy to have Achane rest the season if he can afford his upcoming bye week in week 13. In week 12. So as long as you can afford missing him for 1 week here, if we're looking at the rest of season schedule, both him and Barkley have incredible schedules ahead, especially for the fantasy playoffs. But obviously, Achane's been a far more competent fantasy producer in comparison to Barkley as of late. Thank you. Miracle Robinson says, Purdy or Stafford for my quarterback by week. Okay. Pick up 8-2, I'm in first place. I think Stafford has to always be the pickup and play. The reality of the situation is sure that Purdy has a easier schedule in terms of this upcoming game and maybe even going forward. But the reality of the situation also includes the fact that he's coming off of a huge hiatus while Stafford is on a burner of throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns every single game for the last 5 weeks here. So I would much rather play Stafford in this circumstance. Thank you. 26 Bands Up says, what's up, Andrew? We halfway there. Questions in the chat. Halfway there in regards to what? What's up, Andrew? Halfway there to the chip. Oh, I see. Got it. All right. It says I need the next 3 wins to make the playoffs in a full PPR standard format. Okay. My team consists of Herbert, Stafford, JSN, Ibuka, Pickens, McCaffrey, Jacobs, and Warren. You've got a really good team. I don't think there's a necessity to have to make any moves. Goddard, Tyler Warren, Ferguson, Juwan Jennings, with Quentin Johnston, Woody Marks. What move should I make? Who should I start this week? Also, Vidal is on waiver wire. Should I attempt to pick him up? Who do I drop? Okay, so there's a lot of questions here. First and foremost, who do we start this week is going to be relatively simple. I'm playing Herbert against that incredible matchup against Jacksonville. I mean, Davis Mills just went for all the points. Imagine what Herbert's going to accomplish. You play JSN, you play Igbuka. That's an easy wide receiver 1 and 2. In terms of RB 1 and 2, it's McCaffrey and Jacobs. And then within the flex position, you got to play Jalen Warren there. And then with Tyler Warren on a potential bye week here, it's between Goddard and Ferguson. I would probably venture to say that I prefer the matchup for tight ends against the Raiders comparatively, so I'd probably end up rolling with Jake Ferguson in this circumstance. Now, in terms of potential trades in which you could theoretically make, I mean, again, you've got so much incredible depth. I would look to probably move Woody Marks and a player in order to try to go and make an upgrade. Like, I would be looking to make a move where I'm taking Woody Marks and Pickens potentially, or maybe even Woody Marks and Jalen Warren and going after a top-tier running back. Like, genuinely, at this point, that could be a move in which you can explore, but you do have to remember that you need the RB depth for the future because McCaffrey has an upcoming bye week ahead. So maybe you just need to maybe hold on to Woody Marks just in preparation of that for that specific week. Picking up Vidal certainly would help, but does he auto start on this team? No, because you have 3 other alternative options that are great, but certainly picking up Vidal and dropping somebody of the potential form of maybe one of your 3 tight ends could be beneficial because you would prevent somebody else in your league then, from using Vidal against you in this kind of a week. But otherwise, after you pick him up this week, you're going to have to drop him off next week anyway, because post week 12 bye, week 13, Hampton will be back. So unless you're going to pick him up in order to force somebody else not to use him, I don't think it's a necessity because you're not going to play him. So in regards to making the playoffs, I think you're in a really solid position. You got a lot of players in this, in this current week that should go off. So I'm not too worried about your situation here. I wouldn't make any crazy trades. Keep it for depth. Unless, again, you can move like a Woody Marks and a Pickens and go get a huge wide receiver upgrade to where you can find someone in your league that is struggling for depth across the board. And maybe you can go ahead and yoink a player in that kind of a circumstance. Thank you. Kent, what's up, man? Cheers, mate. Ken, what do we have? Let's see. It's in a double wide receiver, double running back, double flex format, by the way. I'm in a 10-team full PPR. 6 make the playoffs. I'm currently in 5th. My running backs are Henry and Henderson and Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and Harvey. Brother, what the heck? How did you get all these players? Okay. My wide receivers are Tedder Owen McMillan, Terry McLaurin, Slayton, Godwin, Addison. Tight ends are Andrews and Tyler Warren. I got offered Sutton for Henderson. Thoughts? I don't like the trade. Ultimately, the value of which you're getting in return, I would much rather go after a different wide receiver. Like in this current position of being in a full PPR scoring format, I would much rather go and trade for a Wan'Dale Robinson. I'd rather go trade for a Justin Jefferson on a buy low potential prospect, where I would rather give away a Derrick Henry in order to go get a legitimate wide receiver 1 rather than have to play around with Sutton every week and hope that he figures it out. With his upcoming schedule being Kansas City, and then the week after that he has a bye week. Sure, it gets easier from once he takes on Washington week 13, but then the weeks after that, Las Vegas and Green Bay obviously didn't fare well in this most recent game. In this circumstance, I would rather, in your position, take Henderson and go after a player maybe like a Waddle. But then again, he does have an upcoming bye. I would like the potential where genuinely, I wouldn't mind going after an A.J. Brown. I wouldn't mind going after a Jameson Williams. Those are the kind of players that I'm kind of putting my eyes towards. T. Higgins. I just need somebody that's going to be a auto start every week rest of season for your wide receiver. I'd even be willing to go and buy low on the potential of someone like Marvin Harrison right now, coming off of a very underwhelming kind of week. Even though he did score a touchdown, could have had 2. I think there's a lot of juice to squeeze out of that overall potential play for weeks 11 through 14 to help you get into that playoff positioning. So that's my thought process on the matter. I'm not really, too keen on this overall trade. And I want to keep depth. I don't want to have to send a 2-for-1 because of the double flex format. But considering Dobbins may go to the IR, which would elevate Harvey, you are then in a position to where you can afford to trade at least one of these running backs. To which, if you can move a Henry and go get a Jefferson, I think that's a great play in a plan of action. Otherwise, moving like a Hendo for an AJB or maybe for a Waddle, I think is a potential plan of action in which we can explore and see if potentially available. Otherwise, you could always look in the direction of sending maybe a Harvey for a Wan'Dale Robinson, depending on what the overall situation is with Dobbins starting tomorrow. Thank you. LDMND sends out a question. Says, running back targets for my team with Dobbins going down. I mean, look, as of right now, in terms of targets, let's see what you have here. I'm in a 2-2-1 league with May, Barkley, Dobbins, Rashad White, Pollard, and Drake London, Higgins. Okay, so ideally trying to trade Franklin and Pearsall for a middling RB. Brother, that's going to be a tough ask. I mean, ultimately, A middling RB is really valuable, but I guess you could go after genuinely, you can go after a Kamara, I guess. But even that is a little bit sketched out in terms of the potential of the future of the season. Middling RBs like a DeAndre Swift, an Aaron Jones, a Travis Etienne, a Quinshon Judkins, a Woody Marks, in my mind, would be incredibly difficult to be able to bring on roster. I think trading for Breece Hall with the upcoming schedule ahead is non-ideal. I think the potential which you would go after a Kenneth Walker or a Tyrone Tracy or, a David Montgomery, even though, yes, they are more affordable, they also have their downsides, to which I guess you could make a move for one of those players that I just mentioned. Again, Walker, Montgomery, or Tracy. I think those are affordable options going forward that could end up servicing well as an RB2 in a full PPR. Again, none of them posing as incredible potential plays for the future. So really just a tough situation there. Maybe, yeah, it's going to be tough to trade for like an ETN, Judkins, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift kind of esque player. Unless you want to really pay out for it, which you could, certainly could, but it's going to require you probably move off of, like Alec Pierce is going to have to move for sure. And then it may be to have to add on Franklin. I don't think Pearsall is going to be the move. I think it has to be like an Alec Pierce and Franklin move in order to accomplish that. Thank you. But again, it has to be a team that's also wide receiver needy. So there's a lot of things that have to break in your direction. RJ, what's up, my man? RJ says the following. He says, I've got Warren on a bye week, and Gadsden probably hurt. Likely Jonnu Smith, Mason Taylor, what is that? Mayer, okay. Barner or Freiermuth are my best options. Yeah, Michael Mayer is not startable. Additionally, on top of it, Jonnu Smith is not startable. Mason Taylor is not startable. Therefore, of your available options, I think the best, likely until further notice, still also not startable. Barner, very much so touchdown dependent. I play Freiermuth this week as a potential 1 week pick up and play in the absence of Warren. That's what I would do. Thank you, RJ. And H sends in a question. Says Baker, Bijan, Judkins, Rice, Cortland Sutton, Bowers. Bowers, 10-team full PPR. Do I need to trade for a wide receiver due to Sutton being lackluster? Lost Wilson this week, and Jacoby Myers is my only other receiver. Yeah, look, as of right now, you definitely need to trade for another wide receiver. But the issue is, what would you be shipping off? I don't really want to send away Baker, Bijan, Judkins, Rice, or Bowers in order to accomplish this. So in the case of your current 10-team league, I probably just stick with this. In the event in which you were just looking for a more affordable potential trade option to go after, at wide receiver, I would probably point you in the direction of maybe someone like, I don't know, if it's a 10-team league, there's a chance that Darius Slayton is out there and available in your league, to which you can maybe go and explore in that direction and have an alternative option to someone like Cortland Sutton, so where you're not always bound to having to play him. Jordan Addison's a great buy low potential prospect there. Romeo Doubs coming off of an underwhelming week, or you can go ahead and effectively pick up Jaden Reed off of the waiver wire for future weeks ahead. AJ Brown's another buy low potential prospect. Again, there's a lot of options out there available to you. It's just a matter of which ones are available to explore in terms of either a trade or via a waiver wire pickup. Otherwise, I hold what you have because I don't really want to branch off of any of these alternative pieces in order to try to, fix this position here, which could fix itself in 2 weeks. Thank you. Barzo, what's up? Says, hey, Andrew, going to pick up Parker Washington on the waivers. I need in a full PPR, if I can get him, start flex Parker Washington, DK Metcalf, Rashad White, or RJ Harvey. Well, I think it depends on multiple kind of, in the event in which J.K. Dobbins was to miss, RJ Harvey's the auto start in my mind. Now, again, it's very much so contingent that that specific thing occurs. Like the Denver Gazette's Chris Tomasin reports that the Broncos are considering placing J.K. Dobbins' foot on the injured reserve as of the most recent injury. So they're considering it. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but he's going to miss some time there. To which, if he misses this week, I think RJ Harvey genuinely is a better play than Rashad White, or there at least could be a discussion there because, really, I think that RJ Harvey would get the entirety of the workload. Even against Kansas City, I'd be willing to roll in that direction. Parker Washington against the Chargers, even though I do think it's a solid play, and DK Metcalf against Cincinnati is okay. But again, DJ Turner is a great cornerback, so it's between Rashad White and Harvey. And I'd probably lean towards Harvey if Dobbins was outright out this week. Thank you. Abide Los Angeles says, questions of the comments. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it, my man. Says, rest of season, who should I take? I can only pick two between Worthy, Aaron Jones, Dobbins / Harvey, or Jennings. I mean, ultimately, I think Aaron Jones, well, okay, in a full PPR, I would feel more comfortable with these three. The Aaron Jones, Dobbins / Harvey duo is the better of the grouping in my mind, because Worthy, again, very much so limited utilization has become, as of late, touchdown dependent because of the lack of yardage and touches alone. And then additionally on top of it, unless there's a big play down the field, the red zone has been dominated by not only Kareem Hunt, but Rashee Rice and effectively, Kelsey as of late, and even Marquise Hollywood Brown. But so Worthy not too interested in. Jennings, again, once Pearsall returns, it's going to become a matter of and even also Ayuk, it becomes a little bit of a muddy water situation. So Aaron Jones / Harvey Dobbins would be the two combo in which I would like to go ahead and have rest of the season. Thank you. Oni, what's up, man? Says, I moved Charbonnet and Tedero McMillan for ETN. Roster consisting of Lamar, Stafford, Judkins, ETN, Harvey, K9, Brian Robinson Jr., Tootin, Bucky, CD, Adunze, Worthy, Shakir, Tyler Warren, 7-3 right now. Any moves to make? I mean, obviously, you've got an abundance of running back depth in terms of Judkins, ETN, Harvey, K9, Robinson, Tootin, Bucky, to which once Bucky is healthy, you would effectively have 5 starting running backs on your team. So I'm sure there's someone in your league who may be a little bit less fortunate at the running back position, to which you may be looking in the direction of moving 2 of maybe, let's say, for example, K9 and Harvey, to maybe Harvey to the manager who has Dobbins, maybe sending both of them in his direction in order to, in return, get the potential of a wide receiver in exchange, to which it kind of gives you a little bit more depth in case anything happens to CeeDee Lamb and Adunze, so that you wouldn't have to 100% play Worthy and Shakir for rest of season purposes. That would be my other thought process. Otherwise, I mean, you could also look in the direction of moving 2 running backs in exchange to get 1 in return, right? You would move like an ETN and a Harvey in order to potentially trade up and try to go and get a buy low potential on, I would say Henry or Barkley, technically speaking. But otherwise, if anything like that is not available, keep it as is. You're good to go because you got a really strong roster with a lot of depth. Thank you, Oni. Michael Ortiz. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Michael says the following. He says, in a half PPR, 1 running back, 1 flex format with Henderson, Breece, Vidal, Sutton, and Addison. Also, 1 tight end with Loveland, or pick up Hawkinson and Fannin as my other tight end. Okay, so considering you have Henderson, Breece, Vidal, Sutton, and Addison, in terms of the potential RB flex play, I have to play Henderson and I have to play Vidal. I think that's the appropriate approach, especially with Breece Hall in that offense not looking great, Sutton being on an incredibly inconsistent streak, and Addison, yes, taking on Chicago this week has an advantageous position, just don't really outright want to trust it. I'll take both RBs there with Hendo and Vidal. In regards to your tight end position, I don't trust Hawkinson because I don't trust JJ McCarthy to utilize him. So if it's between Loveland and Fannin, can I objectively trust either of the two? I mean, Fannin's a little bit hobbled. If he gets a full participation or practice all week long, I'd be okay rolling him against the Baltimore Ravens at that point. Thank you. B-Stubbs50, what's up, Stubbs? Says, sitting at 5-5 with Daniel Jones, was it Bo Nix, Bijan? I'm assuming that's got to be Bijan, right? By Jay. I mean, I don't know who that would be. Bucky, White. We have JSN, Devontae Adams, Rome Odunze, Tyler Warren, Mack, Trey Benson, Fannin Jr. What do I do if not producing points? I mean, at this moment, if you're not able to produce points, then you have to ship away Bucky Irving and maybe even Rashad White with him. But ultimately, you have to sell on this now if you're not going to get the appropriate value for him in the upcoming weeks. I will say at 5-5, you still have a very, very good chance of making the playoffs with the potential of JSN, Adams, Rome Odunze as your wide receiver trio, assuming they show up. Obviously, Tyler Warren is on a bye week this week, and Fannin will be able to suffice, hopefully, if he's healthy at a full capacity. But in terms of quarterback play, again, both these guys being highly inconsistent as of late, Bijan Robinson will eventually be fine. And if you can wait for Bucky to return, I mean, I truly think that this is a roster that has a lot of potential to make noise in the fantasy playoffs. It's just a matter of, can we get there? And that is going to be determined by, can we go right now and pick up another quarterback? Because I don't feel comfortable playing Knicks against the Chiefs. So I'm going and picking up Jacoby Brissett in order to accomplish that. And if that means to drop Bo Nix, I'm dropping Bo Nix. Because I'm going to start Daniel Jones rest of the season anyway. And I don't have the ability to afford to have to play Knicks against the Chiefs. So I'm going to picking up Brissett. I'm rolling in that direction. In the event in which you do not see yourself being able to kind of win this week and you have to win this week, then Bucky Irving maybe is a potential trade candidate to where you're shipping him off in order to bring back some running back help. Maybe an ETN could be a potential available option there at RB. Thank you. Gerardo Rodriguez, Gerardo, thank you. Says in a PPR, my running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Rico Dowdle, and Bucky Irving. My wide receivers are London Pittman and Tez Johnson. I need a wide receiver. Who's the best between Jennings, J-Mo, Pearsall, Franklin, or trade an RB for a wide receiver? I mean, look, in terms of this available options, Jameson Williams is by far and away the best, not only for this week, but for rest of season purposes in my mind. So I'd be more than happy going in that direction. So if you can go ahead and you can get J-Mo, that's what we should accomplish. Or trade for an RB for a wide receiver. I mean, technically, you could trade an RB for a wide receiver. If you were going to try to accomplish that, again, it's very much so determinate and dependent on whether or not you can afford for the upcoming Dowdle and Christian McCaffrey bye weeks. So here's the thing. Dowdle goes on bye next week. Christian McCaffrey goes on bye week in week 14. So holding both of these on roster is perfectly doable under the assumption that, again, you'll just play the other two. So once Dowdle's on bye, you play Christian McCaffrey and Henry. And if we can keep on to Bucky, that's fine. But you can't start them both, or you can't start all four in a league in which it's a standard 2-2-1. If it's a 2-2-2, then I keep it going, and I just let this team continue to just work its course. I pick up Jameson Williams and keep it rolling. Otherwise, I'd be more than happy to move like a Dowdle in order to try to go pick up a wide receiver in exchange to try to just shore up that position for myself. Again, if you're talking about sending away a potential top 12 running back for rest season, I would like to get a top 12 wide receiver in return. So that's the kind of names that you would try to have to go after. Thank you. Appreciate it, Gerardo. After Gerardo, we had a question that came in from Easy E, who says, hey, Andrew, questions in the chat. I'm currently 4-6 in 7th place out of 10 teams, but I have the second most points in my league. Top 4 to make the playoffs. Wow, top 4. That's a very, very sharp league. Team is Hurts, Puka, Metcalf, Sutton, Debo, Javonte, Derrick Henry, Judkins, Laporta, Gadsden. Am I cooked? I don't know if you're. No, I don't see that you're cooked. Here's the reality of the situation. At tight end, you're going to play Laporta because Gadsden's injured. At running back, you're playing Javonte and Derrick Henry very happily. Puka Nacua is your wide receiver. Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. To which then it just becomes a matter of we're playing probably Judkins in the flex, and then we have to find a better wide receiver too. To which I'm taking Metcalf, Sutton, and Debo and trying to trade 2-for-1s for anybody in the league that has a solid matchup this week. Now, again, this week's matchup at wide receiver, may not be there may not be an abundance of like incredible matchups that we can key in on, but if you can somehow, some way find yourself trading for T. Higgins, I would say that's an incredible position to be in, especially considering they take on Pittsburgh, who is technically the number one matchup at the position at wide receiver. Another top-tier matchup would be Washington. Waddle would go off. The San Francisco 49ers is a great matchup, the third best at the position since week 5. We're talking about Marvin Harrison there as a potential buy option. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a great schedule, so you can continue to maybe look towards picking up someone like Tez Johnson, assuming he's available in a 10-team league. Chicago Bears are a great matchup for this week. Again, it's just a pure matter of like, can you go and trade for a JJ? Probably not, but maybe Addison's a potential buy low option. So those are some potential paths in which you can explore in order to send 2 of these 3 in order to get a wide receiver in return that can at least give you a little bit of stabilization now, and in order to help you kind of just rack up 3 wins in a row, because you're definitely going to need them. To the max says I'm 8-2 in a 12-team full PPR roster with 1 flex. I have Dart, Gibbs, I've got Achane, Rice, JSN, Goddard, Sutton, Aubrey. My bench consisting of Purdy, Spears, Rashad White, Pearsall, Kincaid, and Burrow is on IR. Any trades, and do I drop a quarterback to roster Burrow? I mean, as of right now, you're going to leave Burrow in the IR until further notice. Once you get into a position to which he returns, you drop Purdy for him. But otherwise, in terms of potential trades, I mean, again, looking at the running back position, Gibbs and Achane, nothing needs to change here. You're 8-2, keep riding it. Then you go with JSN and Rashee Rice. There's no improvements you can make there. You genuinely have 2 of the top 6 wide receivers for the rest of the season, if not better. And then, of course, between Goddard and the potential of like maybe going and buying low on just throwing it out there, maybe because of Kincaid's injury, Goddard again not being the most consistent because of the touchdown dependency, maybe we go buy on Tyler Warren, assuming the team he's associated with needs a tight end this week. Send him Goddard. Go take Tyler Warren off his team. Otherwise, you could also potentially go and try to see if there are other tight ends on the waiver wire that you can stash on your IR, like a Brenton Strange or maybe a Darren Waller potentially out there. Otherwise, I'm very happy with what this team looks like, and I'm just going to continue to roll with it. Genuinely. Thank you. Jerome Hill sends in a question. Says, what order should I prioritize the wire? Everyone I pick up, I'll have to drop 1 Okay, so Alec Pierce, Parker Washington, and Juwan Johnson in a 10-team PPR, 4 and 6 teams in the chat. Let me see what you have on roster. Jaden Daniels, Jacoby Brissett, Jordan Love, JT Gibbs, Tracy, Rice, Diggs, Quentin Johnson, Sutton, Godwin, McLaurin, Pearsall, tight end T. Johnson, and Loveland. So Theo Johnson's at tight end. Okay, so here's my overall thought process on this matter. In terms of your wide receiver position, with Rashee Rice and Diggs being your primary 1 and 2, then Quentin Johnston, Sutton being your 3 and 4, I don't know if there's a necessity to have to prioritize Alec Pierce and Parker Washington, nor do I think there's a priority to where you need to prioritize Juwan Johnson outright, because you do have serviceable players on roster. Now, if I was going to prioritize one of this group, I would say that the best plan of action would probably be going after Alec Pierce in this circumstance. If I'm dropping one player in order to accomplish this, genuinely, I'm dropping Godwin. Yeah, very happily, actually, I would drop Godwin. And then in regards to the potential, which picking up Parker Washington, I would also put in a waiver, which I don't get Alec Pierce. I just drop Godwin for Parker Washington. And then I'm going for dropping Loveland in order to pick up Juwan Johnson. Now, in regards to the order in which I prioritize it, I go Alec Pierce 1, Juwan Johnson 2, Parker Washington 3. Thank you. All right, continuing on. Sean K sends in a question. Says, grab one off of the waivers in a PPR. Shaheed, Judy, or Slayton. Genuinely, I think there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Seattle Seahawks offense. And with the Rams taking on the Seahawks this week, I think this may be a Cooper Kupp game in a revenge matchup. So maybe Shaheed is not the greatest overall pickup and play for this week. If you're needing to pick up one of these players in order to immediately play them, I think the best available option is genuinely Darius Slayton in this circumstance, specifically for this week's matchup against the Packers, to which, regardless of whether it is Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, I think Slayton finds himself a lot of potential for success. I don't really love the matchup for Judy this week against Baltimore, and I'd be willing to roll with Shaheed, but again, he's very much so the way that they're utilizing him. He is going to have to make one singular play to make his week, considering the lack of utilization he has seen as of, just only integrating within the overall team and building rapport with Darnold. So Slayton would be the priority. IsoFlip says Goff for Gadsden. Done with quarterback bye week. Steal ? Or do better. If you could send away Goff and get Gadsden, that's fine. It's just a matter of what is the severity of Gadsden's injury and how long is he going to theoretically miss? If he's going to miss the next 4 weeks and he's going to have to be put on injured reserve, who knows whether he even comes back normal. Maybe they can have him back and ready by week 13 post-bye week, and he'll only need to take this week off. We're hoping that's the case. And if that is in fact the case, I think that's worth the trade. I'd rather have Gadsden and give away Goff very happily. I think that's a steal in your position. Thank you. Omar the Grouch says, trade Bijan for Jalen Warren and Adunze. I think you would have to be super desperate for wide receiver to be able to justify a move of this caliber, because I think Bijan Robinson, he's been playing at a lesser position, but I will objectively say if wide receiver's in a rough spot for you, I think what Jalen Warren will be able to accomplish in the not so distant future, specifically the upcoming schedule ahead, is such an impactful position to which I do think that there's a justifiable position here, because they take on Cincinnati, Chicago, Buffalo in the next 3 games here. Then they have Baltimore, which could be a little bit of a tougher game. But then you have Miami, Detroit, and Cleveland. I think there's a lot of value to be had with Jalen Warren, to which if wide receiver is a necessity, I'm willing to make that move. Omar, thank you, man. The man 0907 says in a half PPR. I have Flacco, Nix, Brissett, Jacobs, Rico. What we have? Chase Brown, Judkins, Vidal, Benson, JSN, T. Higgins, Sutton, Wandale Robinson, Jake Ferguson, Juwan Johnson. Should I move depth pieces for stronger starting roster? Depends on how many players you can start in your league of the man. If you can start a double wide receiver, double flex format, or triple wide receiver, one flex, I would say that sure, maybe we can go in the direction in which we're technically moving, if you're playing in a double flex league, you probably don't move the depth. But in the event in which you are not, and you're playing in a 2-2-1 league, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback, so a start 7 format, then yes, you probably need to make some moves. Because Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown are probably your top 2 RBs for rest of season. Rico Dowdle's number 3. The only reason I have him number 3 is because he does have an upcoming bye here. So in this overall circumstance, these are your top 3 running backs. You can move away from Judkins, maybe even Benson, who can theoretically be a starter once he returns, and try to go upgrade for a single RB. There's a possibility for that to potentially be able to transpire. Maybe go buy low on Derrick Henry, or you can maybe even go ahead and flip Judkins alongside of a wide receiver like a Cortland Sutton or a Wanda Robinson in order to try to go buy low on a top tier wide receiver that hasn't been playing at the greatest overall level. I think these are very much so available options that if you can find a team in your league that is struggling and needs the depth because of injury, because of bye weeks, because of all that kind of combination, that's the play you should be making. 2-for-1s there, brother. Thank you. It's just BT says, Woody or Aaron Jones? Preferably, I would say Woody. Not only this week, but for rest of season. Bro, I beat JT manager. Gibbs, baby. Still, listen, 3-7 is not that bad. Again, I'm telling you, the fact that you won, Rogo, is insane. But listen, 3-7 is still a position to where you can get into the playoffs. I'm looking at my 12-team league here, guys, and I'm genuinely like, there is, in my 12-team league, my home league, there's a team that's sitting at 3-7, yes, but there are also 6 teams at 4-6. They're tied at 4-6, and they're all tied to potentially try to get into that 6th spot. There's a lot of time left. You can string together 3 wins. I've seen it before in a league in which 6 teams make the playoffs. The final team has a 6-8 record and they make the playoffs. I think it's more than capable for you to string together 3 wins, if not 4 wins, and make it. Rogo, well done, my man. That's crazy, though. That is insane that Gibbs were able to help you launch over the win there. Should I pick up Pacheco off of the waivers? Drop Tootin. I would say I'm perfectly fine making that move. That works for me. Again, Pacheco's probably going to miss this week, but in the event in which he doesn't, I mean, I think that's, you have a starter at that point, rest of season. Don Rays, what's up? Says, good evening. Questions in the chat. Thank you, Don Ray. Says, I traded away Kenneth Walker and Jacoby Myers and Algier for Lad McConkey and Kamara. That's a W trade. Incredible trade. I don't know how you were able to silver tongue your way into finding that available trade, but congratulations on being able to do so. I think that's an absolute steal in your favor. Even if you told me you traded Jacoby, K9, and Algier just for Lad McConkey, I would have told you stole that. The fact that you got Kamara as well, who has such a great fantasy schedule in terms of the playoffs. The New Orleans Saints in the fantasy football playoffs takes on Carolina, the New York Jets, and Tennessee. If Kamara is ready to go by then, my goodness, we're in a good spot. Anonymous, what's up? Says, hey, bro, looking for some trade ideas. Team is in the chat. So this is what I will suggest, guys. Again, a couple days ago, on Friday of last week, I talked about the rest of season strength of schedule at all 4 primary positions in regards to my trade targets video. We could go ahead and pull those graphics up on screen again, and I have no problem doing so, but I would immediately point in that direction in regards to trade ideas in terms of players to go after based on schedules ahead and what you're looking for. Are you looking to try, and I specifically broke this down in the video for all 4 positions. Are you looking to try to make the playoffs? So do you need to have players who have an incredible schedule from now weeks 11 through 14? Or are you in a position to where you're already going to make the playoffs and you're preparing for weeks 15 through 17? Depending on those spectrums of time, that will give you a different answer as to which running backs or wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks to be able to go after. In the case of which, again, looking at your team ahead here, let's see what your schedule looks like. It says, I'm in a 14-team double flex league, half PPR. We have Jalen Hurts, Gibbs, Kyron Williams, Rice, Diggs, Gadsden, Hendy, Woody, Aubrey, BTJ, Dobbs, Spears, Franklin, Cleveland, and Green Bay's defense, claiming Otten for Musgrave. Perfect. Bowers and Jacobs on the block. I like my team, but I need a little bit more. I mean, looking at the team as a whole, I think your running backs are great. I think your wide receivers are solid. I mean, Rashee Rice is elite, and Diggs is going to continue to be good. Henderson, if he continues to maintain this job, is going to be fantastic. If Gadsden is healthy post-bye, in which you can, again, will be able to suffice with Otten in the meanwhile. Woody Marks is going to be incredible for rest of season purposes. I mean, ultimately, yes, I think the biggest weakness to your roster as of right now technically revolves around Stephon Diggs for the remainder of the season. But I say that because the riches of which you currently have on roster are so good that everything makes him look bad, even though he has had 10-plus fantasy points in legitimately, 5 of the last 7 weeks in a half PPR. He's been 10 plus fantasy points in 5 of the last 7 weeks. Brother, he's a great player. I don't think there's a necessity to have to make a move. I think you're in such a comfortable position right now to where maybe if you want to go try to buy low on Bowers, you can, but buying Jacobs doesn't make any sense to me. Like, unless they're going to take Woody Marks or unless they want Henderson and another player, like I'm more than happy to move Henderson and another player. Let's say Henderson and BTJ, or Woody Marks and BTJ, something like that. Unless they want something of that nature, I'm not making a move for a Jacobs. As for Bowers, again, as of this moment, unless they want Gadsden plus another piece. But even then, I think it hurts your depth, which in a double flex format in a 14-team league with that waiver wire absolutely completely picked apart, I think you're better off keeping depth rather than trying to go for these players that, yes, they're going to be good for you, but you have enough on roster to be able to justify just keeping it as is. Anonymous. Thank you. Jennifer, what's up? So then a 16-team PPR league, do I trade Zay Flowers for Brian Robinson and Sutton? My team is below. Says we have Christian McCaffrey, Rico Dowdle, Chris Rodriguez Jr., Kyle Monangai, Chuba Hubbard, and Benson. My wide receivers are JSN, Keenan Allen, Zay Flowers, Jameer DK. We have Godwin and Golden. I'm 8-2, and I'm prepping for the playoffs. I need to drop somebody for this trade if I was to do it. Okay, so moving Zay Flowers for Sutton in terms of fantasy playoff preparation, as of right now, the Denver Broncos, they don't really have an advantageous schedule for the fantasy playoffs. Green Bay is not pretty. And then, yes, they have Jacksonville week 16, which is great. And then they have Kansas City. Again, I don't like two of those three matchups. In comparison to Zay Flowers, who in the upcoming weeks of the fantasy playoffs, I mean, he doesn't have that great of a schedule either, but at least he's going to avoid a lot of that primary coverage taking on Cincinnati, New England, and Green Bay, considering he does function in the slot very often. Specifically over the course, let me just pull it up for statistical purposes. Statistically, over the course of this season, and I mean, primarily throughout his entire career, he hasn't just been like a primary outside receiving option. He's kind of moved around very often, which I think is beneficial to him. As of over the course of the last 3 weeks here, playing about I would say 38, if not 40%. Yeah, I would say it's actually kind of 40%. Yeah, 40% on average of his routes are being ran from the slot position, to which even if you're playing against Cincinnati, even if you're playing against Christian Gonzalez, you can avoid the overall potential coverages there. Genuinely, I think in a PPR, I'm fine keeping Zay Flowers. In a half PPR standard, I would go with Sutton just because of the pure touchdown upside that he would provide. But being able to secure the Brian Robinson commitment to CMC, is it worth it? I trust Sutton enough to which I'm okay making this trade. Do I love it? No. But I think just being able to get the insurance policy of Brian Robinson just in case is enough to where, yes, I'm okay making this trade. I drop Golden to accomplish it, though. Thank you. Eric M says, in a PPR, do I send Knicks and Pitts for Aaron Jones? Who's your backup quarterback, brother? Says, I have Herbert. Yeah, immediately. I make the trade. The trade is done. Get Pitts off my team. Get Knicks off my team. Give me Aaron Jones. That's beautiful. Thank you. Vlad, what's up? Says, Andrew, quarterback and tight end question. Thank you very much. Okay. Vlad says, quarterback, start Goff this week or pick up Brissett. I mean, I don't mind playing Goff, but Brissett, man, has just been so good. Out of the two of them, I would say that there's let's see, what else do you have? A-Rod, Darnold, or Purdy off of the waivers. I genuinely think I'd rather play Brissett against the 49ers than Purdy, Darnold, Aaron Rodgers off of waivers. Now, in regards to Goff, am I willing to outright play Brissett instead of him against the Eagles? The Eagles is a tough team. Eagles is a real tough team. I would legitimately, if it's my team, I'm probably going to roll with Brissett. Genuinely. For tight end, I have Gadsden. If he doesn't play this week, do I go with Otten, Loveland, or Freiermuth? Genuinely, for this week, I'd say Otten technically is the safest play considering his recent contributions, but anytime I have an opportunity of playing a tight end against the Cincinnati Bengals, I take the action, and I'll go ahead and I'll suggest you play Freiermuth this week in specific. I think Otten is more of a longer-term potential option comparatively for not just this week, but for future weeks ahead. And I think it might be the play for you this week, primarily because, like, you know that Gadsden's going on bye in week 12 also. So picking up Otten, not only to use him this week, but also the next week, is probably your best interest, unless you just were looking for a one-week pickup and play, which would be Fryer, though. Thank you. Adam Amar says Drake May and Diggs for Justin Jefferson. Let's see here. Have Bake as backup. Do I really want to? Oh, man. Okay, look, this is what I will say. I think that the overall production of Justin Jefferson will improve, but is it going to improve so much so to which I would justify moving Drake May, who has just outright been unbelievable for fantasy purposes, in favor for Baker Mayfield? I mean, Baker's also been solid, but all the injuries around him don't really do him very much justice. He is coming off of a solid game, and the upcoming schedule weeks ahead should be all shootouts. I'm willing to make the move. That's fine by me. I don't mind going for JJ there. Thank you. Rogo says, I'm facing the number one team. What's the best lineup? The best setup, excuse me. Says I have McCarthy, McConkey, Adunze, Gibbs, Trey Benson, Kittle, Marks, Myers. We have Denver's defense bench consisting of Swift, Jacoby Myers, Shaheed, Corum, Musgrave, Daniel. Okay, so of the available or go for waivers, I mean, in this current circumstance, if you can go for the waivers and pick up Jacoby Brissett and start him at quarterback, I would. And I would play him alongside of McConkey and Adunze. Gibbs is my RB. Woody Marks is my RB2. Kittle's my tight end. And then within the flex position, I'm probably setting myself up to most likely play DeAndre Swift in this circumstance. Obviously, keep Myers, keep Denver's defense. You're good to go in those. Actually, you probably look to maybe even pivot off of Denver's defense, but I don't think it's a necessity considering they're playing so well. But that's the way in which I would line up this roster if I had the opportunity to do so. And I probably drop Musgraves in order to pick up, that potential Brissett play. Thank you. JJ sends in a question. JJ, thank you. Says, trade Wanda Robinson for Laporta or Ferguson. My choice. I have Jamar, Nico, Sutton, and Gadsden, Hawkinson, and Likely. Personally, trust Wanda more than Sutton. I agree with you. In this circumstance, if you can survive with, with either Hawkinson, Likely, or maybe a waiver wire pickup, whoever's playing against Cincinnati in the upcoming weeks until Gadsden's healthy, I'd be more than happy to just keep the Wanda Robinson side of this and keep it rolling, considering they have the easiest wide receiver strength of schedule rest of the season. And if they would rather trade for Sutton and give you one of these two, that would be preferred. Otherwise, I think you probably keep it because Sutton has been a little bit unreliable. To which, if you're playing in a 3 wide receiver league, or if you're going to be starting Nico, Jamar, and Wandell every week, probably keep it as is. Because again, Gaston will come back sooner rather than later. LZ, what's up? Says PPR double flex 5 and 5. Drop Garrett Wilson. No, I wouldn't drop him. I mean, in an 8-man league, it's justifiable. But then again, I would still try to hope that he could come back for your fantasy playoff run. I don't know if you would trust him to play, but maybe you can hold on to him. And if you get into the later stages of the fantasy playoffs, you could justify starting him. Since I need a flex, I tried trading him, but no one wants him. In the event in which you have to drop Wilson to pick up an actual flexible player, then yes, you make the move. Otherwise, if you can stash him on your IR, that's what I would accomplish. Thank you. Sean K says, Tez or Slayton moving forward? I mean, ultimately, I think Slayton has more value because eventually Godwin and Mike Evans will return, or maybe even Jalen McMillan. So there are other alternatives to that offense that will contribute. But ultimately, I do think that Tez Johnson is in a more stable half PPR position, to which, because of the touchdown availability that he is consistently getting, he technically is the more valuable. Also, traded Adunze for AJ after Adunze's 0-point game. Am I cooked? Should I try to flip AJ? Does he have a good schedule? His schedule is incredible, but I don't know if he's the wide receiver one anymore of that team, as Smitty has kind of taken over the skinny Batman. H13, what's up? Says, in a double flex full PPR, offer Gibbs and Garrett Wilson for Bijan and Nico. Yeah, I would rather have Bijan and Nico rest of season because I can't afford for Garrett Wilson to get healthy at a 4-6 record. You should make this trade. You should take Bijan and Nico and absolutely just run to the hills. Yeah, I think that's a great overall move for you. Thank you. Yeah, Bijan and Nico are the preferred. Joe Simmons, what's up? Says, in a 12-team full PPR, with an extra flex, I was offered Harvey, Vidal, and Jacoby Myers, and Myers and Worthy for James Cook. I still have to play a league mate in 2 weeks. I mean, look, as of right now, I just don't know what you need this trade for. I don't really trust Jacoby Myers. I don't really trust Javier Worthy. Harvey is only going to be as valuable as Dobbins missing time. And Vidal is very much so in the same vein in which he only has value until Hampton returns. And this week he plays, but then next week there's a bye. And the week after that is the expectation of Hampton's return, which is week 13. So you're trading for a fleeting commodity on two unreliable receivers and maybe a running back that may have value in the future, assuming Dobbins misses time. So for now, I don't know if I like this trade. I mean, I think... Sure, it provides you the extra flex maybe this week in terms of playing Harvey and Vidal there, but I think James Cook helps you in the long term far more than these alternative options. Thank you. ISO Flip says, I'm hurting for a wide receiver in a 14-man league. My waiver wire consists of Marquise Hollywood Brown, Tyler Lockett, Demario Douglas, Cedric Tillman, Io Manor, Michael Wilson, and Jalen Naylor. Genuinely, I would pick up and play Tyler Lockett. Genuinely. I think that is the best play of the bunch there, considering the Dallas Cowboys matchup and the fact that, of course, Gino's going to have to throw the ball for majority of that game. Demario Douglas is inconsistent. Jalen Naylor had one good week. Cedric Tillman had very little utilization. Io Manor will probably diminish his overall role with Calvin Ridley coming back. Michael Wilson, even with Zay Jones having a season-ending Achilles injury, not the greatest overall play, but very much so in the mix. The way I would rank it would be like Lockett 1, Marquise 2, Michael Wilson 3. Everybody else is the alternatives. Thank you. Vert sends in a question. Thank you, Vert. Appreciate it, my man. Hey, man, I'm 4-6 and in a half PPR league. Trade away Sutton, BTJ, Benson for Ladd, McConkey, Harvey, and Pierce immediately. 10 times out of 10, I make that deal. Ladd McConkey is more valuable than Sutton. I think Pierce is more valuable than BTJ, and I think Harvey is more valuable than Benson. If you're able to get the Ladd side of that deal, that is an incredible move to which you can make. Looking at the rest of your roster, I think if you're able to make this move, I think it kind of shifts the tides of your upcoming season ahead here, considering the value which you are bringing in. Sure, you do not have Harvey next week, and you will not have Pierce this week, but I still think that the Ladd McConkey contribution to your roster in comparison to these three, which consists of inconsistent, injured, and injured, I'm cool with it. Thank you. Justin McMillan sends it a question. Justin, thank you. Says, I got offered Jalen Warren, Rico Dowdle, and Nico for Gibbs and Emeka Ibuka. I'm weak at running back. I have Gibbs, Monangai, Charbonnet, Gainwell, Algier, and on the waivers. Okay. So in a full PPR capacity, you're being offered Jalen Warren, Dowdle, and Nico for Gibbs and Ibuka. You're technically going to get a little bit of depth in this circumstance to be able to try to fight off this I mean, if I was in your position, I can justify the move. Do I love it? No. Because I don't want to trade away Ibuka and Gibbs. I genuinely don't. And because of my desire to probably want to keep those players for the rest of season, I think it's a fair trade. I think what you're getting technically in exchange is fair. But I don't know what it is. I'd rather have Gibbs and Ibuka. I think I just prefer those prospects for long-term purposes. Even if that means I have to start Monangai or Charbonnet every week, I feel like I'm still more than... I don't know what it is. It's not that I don't trust Warren and Dowdle. I just don't trust them as much as what Gibbs can provide. And even though Gibbs is not going to have 35 points every week, technically speaking, the contributions of a Diggs plus a Monangai or Charbonnet, depending on which way we go about it, comparatively to those two, is pretty much equal. I guess it could give you more depth at flex if you are looking to add an extra flex to the mix. But then it becomes a matter of what the rest of your roster looks like. Honestly, I think I just keep. I could justify making this trade. I think it is a fair trade. I just rather keep Gibbs in this circumstance there. Cairo says, hey, brother, I'm 9-1. PPR, I need a tight end with Warren on bye. Need a kicker and defense for the playoffs. Should I make moves with Dimes/Nix on roster for the playoffs? Dimes should be your quarterback for the fantasy playoffs. He has a top 4 schedule for the final 3 weeks of the season. Nix, I don't think is necessary, to which I don't think you're going to be playing him anytime soon anyway. So in this circumstance, if you're looking for a defense for the fantasy playoffs, Tampa Bay or the New Orleans Saints. If you're looking for a potential tight end play for this week, drop Nix and go pick up a tight end and roll it. Thank you. The man 0907 says, continuing to the previous question, would Nico Collins or maybe Rome be a trade target for Judkins and Sutton? Also, are Brissett, Nix, Flacco okay going forward? Yes, I think it's okay going forward, but you have to remember that Flacco's going to disappear in about 3 weeks here, and Jacoby Brissett could disappear in 3 weeks here if Kyler was to return, which would leave you with Bo Nix as your only quarterback left, which I don't feel the most comfortable with that. But by the time we get there, there may be other alternative options to pivot to in terms of waiver wire pickups. Otherwise, you make a trade in order to try to go get Burrow now, or something of that exchange. In regards to maybe making a move for Nico Collins and setting these two, I feel like the contributions of Judkins and Sutton should be able to get me more. But considering Sutton's inconsistency, I can justify it, technically speaking, for either him or Rome, even though I don't love it. Joel Garza says, in a 6-point per... Yeah, if I was going to look for another, I would try to go get Jefferson for that. That's what I would try to do. Obviously, it's a little bit of a pipe dream there, but yeah. That's my thought on it, because I think that I'd rather just keep if I wasn't going to make a play for a better wide receiver. Joel Garza says, in a 6-point quarterback league, who is the best for the rest of season? I lost Jaden Daniels. I have JJ right now, as in JJ McCarthy now, and Caleb, but Lawrence, Brissett, Fields, Rodgers, Stroud. I mean, as of right now, Caleb Williams and Jacoby Brissett are probably your 2 best options alongside of JJ McCarthy. So you have 2 of the 3 best. Brissett would be the only other guy that I'd be considering. Thank you. Rogo says, forgot to mention, I have Pacheco, potential drop. I mean, only if he misses considerable time or goes to the IR. Otherwise, you should probably keep. Easy E sends in a question, says, just take a breath. Andrew, thanks for all the help. Brother, I'm sweating right now because it's just hot in this room. And I've been streaming for about an hour and 8 minutes. And I'm trying to get to your guys' questions as quickly as I can. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys caring for me. But yeah, I'm just trying to, again, there's not a lot of daylight left in regards to putting in waiver wire pickups. And I'm sure many of you guys want to go ahead and do so. Potentially look to make some trades maybe before or after these upcoming waivers run. Could be of importance. So yeah, again, I appreciate it, but just trying to do my best. Trying to answer as many questions I possibly can so I get into the live chat eventually. Appreciate it. All right. Andrew Mitchell says, Standard League, trade my haul for Bucky. Yeah, absolutely. 10 times out of 10, I would make that move. Thank you. David Dooley says, in a half PPR, Pierce or Sutton for rest of season. Genuinely, I think Pierce could be the answer in this circumstance. Even though I do trust Sutton, he's just been so untrustworthy primarily because of Bo Nix. Just the same way in which I diminish the value of what Tetero McMillan provides because of Bryce Young. I've now come to that conclusion with Sutton and Bo Nix, unfortunately. Ivan Santos sends it. I mean, it could flip in any given week, but ultimately it's just been rough as of late. Ivan says, start and sit Woody Marks or Derrick Henry this week. Also, should I drop Jaden Daniels? I mean, look, as of right now with Woody Marks and Henry, if it's a full PPR, I'm probably playing Woody Marks, genuinely. But sitting Henry is typically difficult in a half PPR. Therefore, I have him higher ranked as of today's video rankings. My current quarterback is JJ McCarthy. I don't know who to pick up. Brissett, thank you. Or Flacco if he's somehow available. Tommy Gunn, what's up? Says, hi, boss. Or sup, boss. Drop Monungai for Sean Tucker on the waivers? No. Monungai is going to have a role within this offense every week for the remainder of the season. Dropping him for Sean Tucker is it's not in your best interest, genuinely, for rest of season purposes. Says, I've got Rashad White still and Judkins. Yeah, I'd rather have Monungai. Thank you. Max says, hi, Andrew. Start 2. Pickens, Henderson, Javonte. I probably just play both running backs. I think those are just 2 very valuable plays this week that I have a hard time pivoting off of because I feel like the touchdown upside is just so incredibly high between the 2 of them in comparison to what Pickens would provide within his offense. Thank you. All right, we have effectively caught up slowly but surely to the live chat. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Probably going to answer a couple more questions for the next 12 minutes or so here, and then we're going to go ahead and head out. I do appreciate y'all coming through supporting the channel. Again, I'll be back with my wide receiver rankings tomorrow. That's why I have to, unfortunately, leave as early as I do, primarily because I got to get to those rankings, and I am sweating under these incredibly bright lights. Josh, what's up? Says, team is now Dak, Herbert, Bijan, JT Swift, Kyle, as in Monungai, Trey Benson, Puka, Adams, Diggs, Dobbs, Pitts, Pinheiro, and Broncos. And then the question is, how did I do in these trades? I traded Sutton for Swift. Beautiful. I traded Jones and Jawan for Diggs. Yeah, I have no problem with these. Honestly, I have no problems with them at all. Again, Jones and Jawan for Diggs, it's purely just you're trying to get out from underneath Jawan Jennings before, of course, the return of Pearsall and Ayuk occur, to which I think it's worthwhile in both of these trade circumstances. I think in terms of the roster that which you've currently constructed here, you're pretty well set up for the remainder of the season. I'm very happy with how this turned out. Thank you. Nice Guy says, Pierce is now top 10 in receiving yards per game on the season. He's legit. Yeah, he's beyond legit. I mean, again, that's why I feel so comfortable with the idea of, in these trades that have been asked earlier, taking him over Sutton. Chase Brown over Shakir, Tracy, or Pollard in a trade. I'd rather have the Chase Brown side, genuinely, because I don't think I can trust Pollard, and I don't really think I could trust Tracy outright every week with Jackson Dart's rushing upside. And Shakir, yes, has value, especially in a full PPR, but Chase Brown is going to just be unbelievable once Burrow comes back. Is Kareem Hunt worth an ad for the first waiver claim? No. Here's the reality of the situation. Unless Isaiah Pacheco was out for the remainder of the season, I wouldn't rank Kareem Hunt as highly as I have him this week. The only reason in which I do is because Andy Reid specifically said yesterday that there's a very high likelihood in which there's a possibility in which they have to reevaluate Pacheco for this week. If in fact he's not available, Kareem Hunt would of course have value, but I do not believe he is worth number 1 waiver priority unless you're in a position to where you're like, Andrew, I'm in a rough spot. I have to win this week. If I don't, I'm out of the playoff positioning, Vidal or T-Mac, I'd rather play Vidal this week. Is Ayuk a drop? I don't know when he's going to play. And considering I don't have a timeline for him, and neither do the 49ers, or they do, but they don't want to share that, there's a high likelihood that he doesn't return into the fantasy playoffs. And even then, like we know, players who return from the ACL, it's a very slow process to kind of get them back to 100%. I wouldn't feel the most comfortable playing him anyway in the fantasy playoffs once the time arises. So I do think he is droppable if you need the space. Do I play Diggs on Thursday or Wan'Dale Robinson, Marvin Harrison, or Terrell McMillan in a PPR? I really like playing Marvin Harrison this week. That's who I would play this week out of all those available options. Thank you, Jocelyn. Rogo, what's up? Says, no Brissett with the waiver wire. Mariota, Purdy, Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa, or Fields. I mean, Purdy would be the answer under the assumption that he's actually playing this week, which I don't think he's going to, but if he does, he would be the answer. Let's see here. Bam Bam says, currently down bad. I'm 2-7. Okay, we could still figure it out. If we pick up 4 wins in a row here, we've got it. Says, I have Saquon Montgomery. I've got Collins, Higgins. I've got Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen can't flex anymore. No more. We got to get rid of that. Trying to mix things up in a PPR, 1 flex. Should I trade Trey Benson for Pearsall? Just trying to not lose this year. I mean, as of right now, I don't even know if Pearsall is playing, brother. So, I mean, you could make this trade. That's fine by me, but I don't know if that does you any service. If neither of these guys play, it's a non-factor trade anyway. So sure, why not? Maddie says, hi, Andrew. Please pick 3 running backs in a full PPR between Henry, White, Chase Brown, Rico, Suave. Yeah, good one. Rico Dowdle, Chase Brown is my 1-2, and Henry would be my number 3 option there. Also, is Ibuka a good play against Buffalo, or go with Adunze? Thank you. I mean, anytime I have Ibuka on roster, he's one of those wide receivers, or at least he's established himself as one of the wide receivers that are going to blindly play every game, regardless of matchup. So I would go in his direction, even though I do think that the matchup for the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers against the Minnesota Vikings can be found to be an advantageous one. I'd probably still go with Ibuka there. Should I sit Addison for Vidal? I would, yeah. Give me Vidal there. Thank you. All right, let me scroll down here. What do we have here? We had a question that came in from JK. Let's see what your question ended up being. JK says, how am I supposed to sell Bucky? Nobody wants him because he has no timetable to return. Yeah, I mean, again, the only teams that you would sell him to that would theoretically be of interest, if the teams in your league were actually at the top of your pack, I'm talking about teams who are in first, second, or third place and that are guaranteed to make the playoffs based on their current win-loss record, those would be the most formidable teams to be wanting to buy him. Because even though he doesn't have a technical timetable, the assumption is that he should return before the fantasy playoffs begin. So if you're a team that is already automatically going to make the fantasy playoffs, those would be the theoretical teams that would be willing to buy him because they know he'll be back by then. And once he is back, the schedule for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers throughout the fantasy playoffs is such an advantageous one to which Bucky Irving would return to being a top 12 prospect in those 3 games easily and, of course, help me hoist a championship. So that's the only teams in which you could trade him to. If those teams are not interested, then you have to hold it and keep it moving. Thank you. Matt says in a 10-team full PPR, says I've got Drake May, Gibbs, Hall, Henderson, Charbonnet, Algier. Wide receiver is London, Dunze, Wan'Dale, Higgins, Bowers, Ferguson. Trade Hall, Hendy, Higgins for Bucky and Chase Brown. At a 5-5 record, I don't feel comfortable making this trade. And the primary reason is because I don't trust that Bucky Irving will return in due enough time to help your 5-5 record lead you to the fantasy playoffs. While I feel far more comfortable that Henderson and Higgins can help you accomplish that in the meanwhile. Again, because you are in a position to which if you make this trade, you'd have Gibbs, Chase Brown as your RBs, which again, both of them are passerbys, which is very much so doable. And you have London, Adunze, and Wan'Dale at wide receiver, and with Bowers at your tight end, you could make this trade and be perfectly fine, to which once Bucky is there for the fantasy playoffs to play in your flex, you're perfect. But you'd pretty much have to guarantee me, Andrew, I'm making the fantasy playoffs. To which if you say that is in fact going to be the case, then I would say make this deal. If not, then I probably would just say you have to hold and guarantee you make the playoffs before you're making a trade to which you're trading for Bucky. Thank you. What are some of your favorite defenses for this week? I think it depends. I mean, again, as of right now, I don't know what's available specifically in your league, but if I was to just look across the board of defenses, just indiscriminate to the idea of whether or not they're highly rostered, I love the idea of playing Baltimore against Cleveland. I love the potential of, or the opportunity of playing Let's see here. Houston versus Tennessee, an automatic. Green Bay against the New York Giants, another great one. I like the idea of the Chargers against Jacksonville this week. Who else do I like? I like the New England Patriots. Excuse me, the New England Patriots should be the number one defense of the week, taking on the Jets. Who else? No. Yeah, that's basically it. Those are my favorite defenses of the week. Thank you. I mean, I guess you could theoretically throw the Chiefs into that mix against the Denver Broncos, considering their offense has been, putrid as of late. ISO Flip, what's up, my man? Okay, ISO says, is Sean Tucker a good pickup? I mean, if you're desperate for running back, sure. Again, I'm going to have him ranked within my top 40 running backs, but I don't feel comfortable enough starting him outright against the Buffalo Bills. Because again, he is still a backup, and yes, he has still been incredibly efficient with his rushing opportunity lately, and it is a fantastic matchup ahead, but I just don't trust playing a running back of that caliber, of that situation, with no receiving upside. He would have to guarantee to score me a touchdown. Otherwise, I don't love it, unless we're desperate. Crazy for wanting to start Darnold or Tua over Mahomes. He never cooks Denver. No, I understand that. I mean, again, if you would like to, you can. I feel like the rushing upside in terms of yardage that Mahomes is probably going to rack against them is justifiably enough to where I would be comfortable there. And again, even though we say that Mahomes never cooks Denver, this Mahomes this season is a different Mahomes in comparison to 2024, 2023, 2022. We've got a completely different version, and he's been on fire. So I'd probably still go in his direction there. AK, would Breece and Ferguson for Bucky be a better trade for me? I would say yes. Nice guy. Says Miami and Dallas sleepers. If the other top defenses Andrew mentioned are taken, I'd go Miami first and Dallas. I don't know if I love Dallas, man. I don't know if I can trust them. I think Miami is a justifiable one, considering, again, in 2 of the last 3 weeks, they've mollywopped their opponents, specifically giving it to the Bills and the Falcons, who are 2 good teams. So giving it to the Washington Commanders could be something of a potential option there. So I do think that is a good overall suggestion there. Ivan says Purdy, Brissett, McCarthy, or Mariota. I'd say Brissett number 1, Purdy 2, McCarthy 3, Mariota 4. Let's see here. Alexander says play Judkins over Barkley. I wouldn't go as far as to doing that. I'd feel more comfortable playing Barkley, but I could justify it. Yo, Andrew, would you trade Dowdle and AJ Brown for CeeDee Lamb in a full PPR? I have Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, so I can afford it, and my wide receivers are as such. Considering the roster that you currently have at this point, I'd say you could afford it, but I just don't know if I feel comfortable. Like in your circumstance, I'd feel way more comfortable starting Christian McCaffrey, Bijan, and Dowdle every week as my 2 RB and a flex, having JSN as my wide receiver 1, and then just kind of playing matchups between Sutton, AJ Brown, Quentin Johnston, Pearsall as my wide receiver 2 rest season. That's what I'd feel more comfortable with. If you feel more comfortable just having the solidification of CeeDee Lamb there as your wide receiver 2, and then figuring out your flex between those other wide receivers, that's fine by me, but I would probably keep Joe Flacco or Stafford week 11. You got to play Flacco there probably. Pittsburgh's the number 1 wide receiver matchup. They're going to torch them. Tony Copeland says start John Mechie versus the Patriots defense. I don't feel comfortable with that at all. I don't think Justin Fields throws for over 100 yards on Thursday. Because again, what has he proven to where we can trust that he can? I mean, he's coming off of a week in which he had legitimately 54 passing yards. And one of those passing yards, or one of those plays, was a 42-yard screen pass to the house for Breece Hall. Otherwise, he would have had 12 passing yards the whole game. It's just, oof. Alfredo, what's up? Freddie says Swift, White, and Sutton for Judkins and Waddle. Swift, White. Yeah, I would. Absolutely. Give me Judkins and Waddle. If you can afford to have Waddle go on a bye in week 12, then sure. But if not, then I guess we could reevaluate. But yes, if you can get Judkins and Waddle in this circumstance, I'm happy with it. Ivan says, why are we so high on Brissett rest of season schedule? No. It's just specifically this week's matchup against the 49ers. That 49ers defense has been putrid. Obviously, because of the volume of injuries they've unfortunately had, their pass rush has been decimated. The fact that their field general, Warner, is not out there, has absolutely put them in an unfortunate reality to which their defense cannot keep up with opposing offenses. There's a reason why over the course of the last 4 or 5 games here, they have been brutalized by opposing quarterbacks. We're talking about Stafford in 2 of the last 5 games going for 280 and 4 touchdowns, 389 and 3 touchdowns. Mayfield 256 and 2 tutties. Stroud 3, 18 and 2 tutties. Jackson Dart scored 3 touchdowns against them, 2 through the air, 1 on the ground. So considering they've just been absolutely picked apart by every single team as of late, and Jacoby Brissett has been such an incredible garbage time quarterback while also, leading his team to a victory against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago, I feel really confident in the potential of him being a automatic pickup and play this week. Do I use my number 2 waiver priority on Burrow? We'll be dropping JJ, so no big loss. Hampton already on my IR. I mean, again, if Burrow you believe is going to be starting for you from weeks 13 and on, and he's going to help you win a chip, because again, what Burrow is going to be able to produce specifically in the weeks in which we're talking about. Let's say if in fact he returns week 13, okay? But let's say it's possible. Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Arizona. Shootout. Why not? You think Burrow is going to be worth stashing? I think so, yeah. Because I think he wants to play regardless of which way this team ends up trending the next couple weeks in terms of wins or losses. Dolph says, hi, Andrew. I'm 3-7 in a 10-team double flex full PPR league. I need a win in the next 3 to make the playoffs. What do? I have Dak, Achane, Chase Brown. Well, here's your situation. You play Achane this week, then you have to trade him next week. You have to. I don't think you really have an opportunity to go any other way. I mean, again, you could theoretically keep him, but I think it would probably be in your best interest to where if you want to secure wins, you have to ship away Achane in order to bring in another running back in his stead. So you would flip him for somebody in that given week of week 12 once he's on a bye who may have an incredible matchup. For example, you would maybe try to flip him for Gibbs, who has a matchup against the Giants. Or you could try to flip him for, Josh Jacobs, somebody of the top tier caliber. And then otherwise, you could just play Chase Brown, and Rico has an upcoming bye as well, which doesn't really help you. So again, week 14 bye with Rico is very dangerous. By the time you get to week 14, you might need to trade him off before then as well, in order to make sure that you win outright the next couple weeks here. So that's probably my suggestion there, Dolph. Okay. All right, guys. I think that's where we're going to call it. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. Again, a little bit of a shorter live stream today, but again, I got a lot of work to take care of in regards to the upcoming wide receiver rankings for week 11 that I will be producing and, of course, putting out tomorrow. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel as you guys typically do on a daily basis. Again, I thank you guys for showing up, clicking the like button, subscribing, and of course supporting the channel in all the ways that you guys do, whether it is just being a community member, sending in super chats, signing up via the Patreon, signing up via Betr, like I've talked about in the past, and I will continue to reiterate. For those of you guys who want my Sunday morning rankings, Betr is the way to do it by signing up today using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of 10, and then additionally after that, making a first time play, you'll get those rankings. Just make sure you're eligible. But again, if you guys don't want those rankings or potentially are not interested in the Betr sign up, you can always go ahead and travel the path towards the Patreon, in which you can go ahead and support the channel there for all my efforts, and of course get those rankings, be able to ask me unlimited questions whether I'm on or off live stream, to be able to go ahead and set yourself up for success. All that information down in the description. Thank you guys. I appreciate y'all. We're going to go ahead, we're going to cue the double helix, the one and only, and until tomorrow, I'll be live streaming tomorrow night. I'll see you guys there. Peace. As I'm doing my outro, IsoFlip comes in here and asks a question. It says, last one, LOL. Okay, last one, brother. Says, Tucker or Algier? I genuinely, earlier today, I ranked Algier ahead of him. So I'm going to go in the direction of Algier, because I do think there's a higher likelihood in which he continues to get himself more opportunity. Even though I will admit, Sean Tucker was a potential play on that list. I was like, I don't know if I trust him. Again, if you want to go in that direction, you perfectly can. He has been efficient. It's a great matchup. I don't mind it. Thank you. Peace.